It's a little nippy here, but a great day to talk about swimming. Can't wait.
I mean, is there ever a bad day to talk about swimming? It is a beautiful, beautiful day here in Overland Park, Kansas. The sun is out. It's in the mid-50s. It's a great day, and we hope this is a great podcast. It's February 6th, 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast, episode 657.
657 is right. Yeah, and we're going to skip the whole intro and go right into swimming.
Yeah, no, I mean we'll give a soft little intro because I'm going to try to be concise today. But you guys know, as we told you last week, we're going to talk about swimming this week. But when I get to talking about swimming, I just go on a rampage because I'm passionate about it. I love it. It's important, and it's a huge struggle. But if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. It's very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We've covered it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also holidays previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the world championships, and everyone in between from all over. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion today. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and let you right in. Great people, amazing resource, and a fantastic community. So utilize that, and we will utilize that today for some of the topics we'll cover on how to not suck at swimming. That's it. We don't do ads. We don't do sponsors, but we do have an agenda, and it's an important one, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
All right. It's a good agenda. Yeah, we're going into how to not suck at swimming, and I think it's like, I'm trying to look it up real quick, but maybe it's number 8.
I feel like it is number 8. It's somewhere up there. We talk about it a lot. It was one of our very first podcasts. It's probably the series is probably our most listened to series. And I popped in yesterday and Sunday and just kind of had the community, at least in the Facebook group, pop in questions. I do want to say quickly, Mike and I both really appreciate the positive feedback we got from the Sprint Olympic series we did last week. We're going to do some more of those in the future, but it's important for us to give back and do good things, or as best we can for the sport, and try to cover a variety of topics. But swimming is one of those that is very, very passionate on my end. I grew up swimming year round. I've worked ocean rescue. I love it. And I'm super passionate about it because, one, I love it, but two, it's also very, very challenging. And it is, I think, the biggest barrier to entry from a physical standpoint, a confusion, a frustration for all triathletes. It is the most time consuming when you talk about ROI, return on investment, in times of driving to the pool. It's the most technique based. So there's tons of questions. There's a bunch of information out there. You've got master's groups, you've got online swim programs, you've got swim instructors at the Y, you've got Joe Blow down the street telling you how to swim. It's just hard, and especially if you take it up later on in life. It's incredibly challenging because it is so technique-based. And so what I did, I perused through the comments. I picked out 6. We're going to make this in a 2-part cast, and we'll cover 3 today, 3 topics, and then maybe trying to answer some more of the direct questions. Aren't really topics, just more of like direct questions towards the end of each one. But I try to be precise today as I can, and I've already told you in the pre-chat to rein me in if I go off. But the first one I want to talk about, and this is a question that had, and I want to talk about time spent and progression. One of the biggest frustrations I see all the time with athletes that are getting into this to swimming later on in life that aren't really sure their technique is great is, how do I get faster? You always hear, I spend so much time in the pool. I work so very hard. I think my technique is there. I can do fast 25s and 50s, but then my form falls apart at the end. I swim 3 times a week and I'm not getting any better. I'll go this and I'm not getting any better. I'm swimming this times and I go to the open water, I'm not getting any better. There's a lot to cover there, but a few things I want to kind of pinpoint in that first one is swimming is a lot like, everything else in terms of swimming and cycling and running. They're all the same. It's all about specific time spent and then progression, and then not a reverting back to right? The set time, right? You got skill, and you got muscular endurance, you got race specific. That's how kind of want you guys to think about swimming. You hear this all the time. I can hold form for 25, but I can't hold it for 500, right? And then you have athletes that can hold it for 1,000 and they can't hold it for 2,000. So the way you should program your swimming, the way that we program our swimming, is you want to focus on first, right? You want to have the fitness to hold the form. And that's reverse of how a lot of people see swimming and see progressions. They think they want to hold form and then hold the fitness. Well, in order to hold form, because you're swimming, you're moving your body forward, you're trying to propel yourself forward in the water, in a pool, in open water, wherever it is, with your body. So you're moving. You want to have the fitness to do that. If you don't have form, if you don't have fitness, you can't hold form. There's a happy medium. You want to spend some of your time on your fitness, right? Not even obsessing about what does my technique look like, right? And you have to be specific when you do this. You can't just, all right, today I'm going to work on only form, or maybe I'll work on, my fitness. You have to have a progression. You have to have a purpose. So what happens is you see athletes that will work on a form for a little bit, and then they will go off and they'll swim very, very, very long intervals that they don't have the fitness for. If you don't have the fitness for it, and what I mean by that is you don't have the arm strength, you don't have the technique, you don't have the balance in the water. Your form starts to fail, and then you're starting to fight in the water. Your RPE goes up, and your pace gets lower. So what I'd like to see most athletes do is focus on fitness, right? Fitness and then form. Then what happens is, and this is a lot of comments we had in the Facebook group as well. I can do 25s and 50s, and I do the long stuff, but then I don't get any faster the longer I go. And that's where going back to the basics, once you're kind of peaked, because there is a point in time in your swimming progression where your fitness overtakes your form, or where your form overtakes your fitness. And that is when people start to either regress or stagnate in their progression. In order to get faster, right? Because swimming is so technique based, find a tempo, right? So an effort, and then find a distance in which you can do one, hold form and speed at the same time. Take adequate rest, and then when you find yourself falling back, not being able to hold form, do something and add something to make yourself hold form, right? So if, let's say you're doing 5 200s at a steady pace, you're holding form, you got the fitness for it. Then what happens first? Your form doesn't fall first. People have this they always say my form falls apart. Your form didn't fall apart. Your fitness fell apart. Okay, or your fitness fell, and that's the same thing with running, right? People don't forget how to run. Their body just becomes so out of shape over the course of a half marathon or a marathon that your form starts to fall. Once you know form, you know form. It's the fitness that allows you to maintain the form over a long period of time. I always use the analogy I have since the beginning of the podcast. When Michael Jordan hits the front of the rim, did he forget how to shoot? Did he forget the technique? No. His legs are tired, right? Fourth quarter. Same thing with, Tiger Woods, any professional golfer. When they start hitting things way too short, do they forget how to do a perfect swing? No, they're just tired. So it's not your form that falters. It's your fitness that falters. So when you see your fitness fade, take a step back, work on boosting your fitness mostly, and almost disregard technique, right? Do a few things at the beginning of your set to make sure you're still keeping your form, your feel for the water, which is hugely important. 25s, 50s, then go into a main set that's only fitness focused. You're working hard. So you got stuck on those 5 200s. Now do 300s, right? So you're going over what you did before, 300s, 400s. Get your fitness up there. Once you feel like your fitness is to a point to where you can do those 3 to 400s, then go back to adding the focus on form. And again, it's counterintuitive, right? To think, oh, my form is fine. No, your fitness is falling apart. And so that's just one of the pieces in times of time and progression where form and fitness have to meet each other. That's one. I think it's very hard to program on your own if you're not communicating with a coach or someone else. What happens is you're not focusing on one thing for long enough to make it stick. Right? You keep going back and forth. I'm going to do this today. I'm going to do this today. I'm going to do this. You have to have progression. You have to have thought out blocks to where I'm going to take this piece and match it with this piece. And then once they're connected and they work, then I'm going to strain them a little bit more in the next piece and see what we get. But you have to have progressions of those. And if you don't, then you find yourself fighting against each other from a form and a fitness standpoint and getting nowhere.
All right. It is. First of all, it's a podcast. It's our swimming number 9.
It is number 9. Oh,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah, man, it's funny how the more I swim, the better my form seems. Because I love this is I think a totally underrated aspect of things is the fitness to hold the form. I mean, so many of us, you can get so wrapped up in form. And I find myself doing that sometimes, and I'm like, wait a minute, if I'm not in swim fitness, I can't really do a lot of things that I can do later on in the cycle, and it's just like, I basically know how to swim. I'm not going to be some kind of intuitive genius about swimming because I never swam when I was a kid. I mean, it doesn't really like naturally line up for me, but I started swimming later. So I feel like in general, I'm pretty decent with my form. And if I'm not in good enough swim shape, it's just like, it seems so hard. Everything just seems so much harder, whether it's your strength in general or just normal flexibility that you build while swimming a lot more. So I think that's a really interesting point that you brought up there, the fact that form is so important in swimming, but you can't even hold it for more than a couple 50s if you're not in good shape. So
and again, it's the hardest one for people to get, because and that's where the kind of the mismatch in thinking comes from. Is it's so technique based. You can make one small change in your technique and drop 3 to 4 seconds off your 100 and make it easier. And the other thing, when I hear people talk about, I'm not getting any better, if you swim less than you don't swim, then it's going to be really, 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 really challenging to get better. And that's just a year-round thing. And that's when, again, going back from a time and a progression standpoint, taking the time to bridge the gap between, to get you to where you have the fitness to hold the form, and then get those to match. And then again, get more fitness, right? Muscular endurance to hold the form technique-wise to build speed. Because that's what swimming is to me, is you build the endurance, right? You build the fitness, the arm fitness, the balance, the anaerobic capacity, the aerobic capacity in the water, to marry that fitness with the form to hold it for a long time, which makes you go faster, right? So you're taking an engine, right? Which is your fitness, your swim fitness. And then fine tuning it, right? Some nitrous oxide boosters on there, whatever you got, and that's like, the technique is your button, right? And that's how you go faster. But most people it's kind of, I'll segue into it now, is the reason a lot of people don't get faster is that the drills that you're doing don't work. They just don't. The amount of time, right? So quick math, even if you swim 3 days a week out of the entire year, the whole year, you're committed, you swim 3 days a week with no question, no time off, 3 days a week, you're swimming 156 times a year. You're still not swimming 208. That's a huge difference. And most triathletes take time off. They don't go to the pool. So you're probably looking at 100, 120. So you're basically swimming a third of the year. You're trying to get better at a technical sport that's so hard to pick up later in life. You're doing it so little, but you expect so much in return. It's not like running. It's not like cycling. Running has a little bit of form. Cycling is like almost zero, right? You sit on a bike, you're stationary, you pedal with your legs, right? They're clipped into a pedal that allows very little movement. All you got to do is spin 360, okay? Running, even if you have terrible form, you can still go run. Swimming, if you have terrible form, again, dropping the deep end, you might not go anywhere. It's so technique-based, and you have so many athletes that go in and they head to the pool and they drive 30 minutes there and they say, all right, we're going to do, 20 minutes of drills, and then we're going to do a little bit of kicking. And you're like, what are you, like, stop wasting your time. And the biggest problem I have with most drills, the kicking on, the laying on your side, the kicking here and there, the one arm out in front, a one arm down the side, the catch up drill, the fingertip drag, all these things that are supposed to tell you and teach you how to swim are done in a vacuum, right? So I would say two very technical things, like I would say learning a perfect golf swing. Because here's the problem with drills and in the pool and an open water. We do, I wouldn't say we do drills, we do intentional swimming with a specific focus. Like I might say today's focus is on finishing far back, right? So I'm not isolating finishing far back for half the set, because I want you to do it while you're swimming. I want you to put it together. I want you to swim square. I want you to aim for your corners, right? The corners of your square. Not, all right, we're going to do one arm here and then one arm here. Or today I want to focus on body position. So it's about focus and intent while you're swimming. The problem with most pool drills is that you're trying to teach. So going back to, you're trying to teach someone to swim piece by piece by piece in a body of water that has nothing to do with the atmosphere and the environment they're actually going to race in. Nothing, except that it's water. Outside of that, there's zero. There's nothing in common. One is water and fluid, so is the other. That's all they have in common, right? There's nobody in your lane. There's no waves. There's no current. There's, not 3,000 other people. You're not trying to change up speeds. Nothing is the same. It'd be like me trying to teach someone, like a golf instructor. All right, Mike, stand up here with that tee. We're going to go all through. We're going to piece by piece, right? We're going to work on your stance. Then we're going to work on your backswing. And then we're going to work on the contact. Then we'll work on the follow through. I mean, whatever you do when you teach somebody to play golf, I don't know. But it's very technique based, right? A golf swing is very technical. And then you're doing it stationary, right? Planted on the ground. And then when I tell you, it's all right, Mike, you've learned. We've spent all this time. You drove into the drive range. You've worked on this. Now that we've kind of got your swing where we want to. Now let's go play around the golf. So I take you out to the first hole, and I put you on the tee box, and the tee box starts vibrating. It starts moving back and forth, side to side, left to right. You're not going to know what the fuck to do. You're not going to know what correct form to do, because it's moving. Because if you don't practice that, how to do things in full speed, you're not going to get any better at it. So the amount of time that people waste on drills for the value proposition that you're getting in return, the return on investment is so small, right? Then it's hard to apply, and it makes you slow, because thinking about drills makes you think slower. And if you want to get better at drills, do drills. If you want to get better at swimming, swim more to get fitness and focus on form. Some of the best drills, so quote unquote drills that do work, do them so they marry into the focus of the set, right? Most people, I'm gonna say most coaches, but most athletes do a few drills, and then when they start swimming, they think zero about the intention of it. Zero. They just start swimming in and think that you're gonna match this together. It'd be like, all right, I'm gonna teach you Spanish. We're gonna work on a few words, okay, for about 10 minutes, and then for the next 50 minutes, I want you to speak in English, and then when you want to talk Spanish, just talk Spanish. You're not going to do anything. You're just talking English the entire time because you don't know how to complete a sentence. That's what happens when people try to do drills. They don't even know how to apply them or what the purpose of. Some great drills for you to do when you're swimming, right? Or excuse me, I hate calling them drills, but things to focus on water swimming that you can marry into your stroke, right? Reaching for the corners, right? I call railroad tracks. You're swimming down the corner of a pool. Most people cross over their midline, right? They reach, take a breath, and then your hand enters across your nose or crosses your midline. Reach for the corners, right? You can do that while you're swimming. And I call them railroad track drills because we have our athletes like look at the bottom of the pool, right, where the black line is, and kind of pull themselves down the railroad track. Another great one is to, warm up with some single arm drills to make sure that you're actually lengthening your stroke. You're reaching far, you're finishing far back, right? Do that, do half right, half left for a length of 25. Then the next length, focus on that again, taking the focus you just did and then implementing it to your normal stroke, knowing what you're doing, and then spend the entire rest of your set doing things. Then add paddles into the mix. Focus on paddle work, engaging things, finishing. Same thing with finishing far back, like I mentioned before. Put a set of paddles on, take off the wrist cord, do some new 25s, 50s, focusing on really finishing far back. Then hop into a short set, put a pull between your legs and only focus on finishing far back. But you're doing it while you're active, while you're swimming. Because there's a huge disconnect with people when they try to do these drills where they go nowhere and it improves nothing, and then they just go back and like, I don't really know how that helped. That didn't really help me, right? Or it's going back to the Spanish instruction. It's like, hey, I'm going to go work because think about the amount of time you spend in a pool. Let's say you spend an actual hour swimming, which is not that much. Which is not that much. Is way too. It's a lot for most athletes. 3 times it goes 3 hours, and you spend 10 minutes on drills. That's 30 minutes out of your 3 hours. Okay, you're doing very, very little of what's going to make you better for the rest of the time, right? Same, and then going back to the Spanish now, just like I'm going to teach you Spanish for 10 minutes, okay? And then you don't practice it. You don't apply it. You don't use it the rest of the week. When you come back the next week, are you going to be any better at Spanish? No. Zero, because you don't know how to apply it. You don't integrate it into. So the biggest thing you can do is integrate your focus, right? The form you're trying to correct, the technique you're trying to perfect into your swim, so you can know how to do it in real life, not piece by piece by piece by piece by piece, right? It'd be like trying to teach somebody a jump shot and never tell them they never had to dribble till they got to a game. Like just do it flat-footed. And then go to a game and you're like, oh my God, I've got to move around. I've got to do this. I don't know what to do. That's what happens. And that's why you continue to be slow or continue to see stagnation in your progression in swimming, is because you don't do enough. Another great thing you can do when working on body positioning is adding a pull buoy and a band, right? It slows down your lower body. It allows you to focus on things up front. Those are crucial things you can do to get better at swimming and take away from, again, drills aren't increasing your fitness, right? They're trying to perfect pieces of a form that you have yet to put together to make fitness and form put together to equal speed.
I spend a lot of time trying to talk people out of thinking too much while they're swimming, and everything you're describing, the single arm drills and pull buoying the band and the paddle work and all these kind of things. Like, to me, that's just a connection with the body. It's engaging the body. And it's sort of like if you're going to go do a pull-up, you don't just jump on there and just try and pull up with your arms. You really kind of, if you hang there and you just feel like your lats engaged, you can do a pull-up a lot easier. So what you're telling me is you're connecting the body and the mind together in a purposeful way, which makes so much more sense than, like you're saying, doing like isolated drills all the time, even though there's, obviously something in there. And if you start, I think when you're young, and it's like a perfect, time to teach you everything, and you kind of get, but the point to me has always been, being engaging from the hips, engaging the lats, and really feeling the body connect with the water and not thinking about it, because you start thinking, think about what that means. If you think and you pause for just a second, you're in water and you're going to slow down or stop or sink. And that, to me, that there's an analogy there with the cycling too. It's like you get, if you're not fit in form, and you start thinking about your pedaling, you're going to have dead spots, and that's how you slow down. That's just physics, I guess, is that you want to be in the fitness to be able to hold it, and then get out of your head and just have it kind of be part of the mission, is just going forward and really being tied into the body. And I like all those drills that you just talked about, and we hate calling them drills, okay? But to me, that's just like really connecting the stroke in a purposeful manner that makes sense.
Yeah, it has to flow together. And again, like I know I use analogies a lot, but it's like when I was teaching Hayden to ride a bike, I didn't teach him on a trainer, because all you do is pedal. But then I put him on side, like, oh, I got to balance too, and that's all you're thinking about is balance. It's just you have to feel. Feel is the most important thing in swimming. If you can't feel the water, you can't grab it. If you can't grab it, you can't push it back. And if you can't push it back, you're not going to go very fast. Understanding your space in water and doing it in real time is the most important skill. No drill, it all does is teach you how to perfect your fingertip drag, which high elbow has zero importance in swimming. Or they try to teach you, or any other drills. It's like, it doesn't teach you feel. It teaches you how to waste your time doing better at a drill, but it doesn't teach you body awareness in the water, doing it all together. You're trying to take 6 pieces at one time, and it's just not, it doesn't work well. Third one, open water anxiety. This is, I will try to speak to this. We have a lot of athletes. I think a ton of triathletes struggle with this. I'll probably, Lynn, toss this one to you more, because I know you've had a few bouts of open water anxiety before. One of the big, as an athlete that grew up swimming, and I'm more comfortable in open water than I am in a pool, I don't ever have it. I never think twice, no matter how bad the seas are, how bad the water is. I never get open water anxiety. I feel more at home on water than I do in land, and I'm thankful for that. But what I will say about anxiety in general because we could talk about all the different forms of anxiety, right? And then you're just basically putting another word in front of it. And it's all kind of 90% the same, right? It's just a different type of anxiety. Is ask yourself what you're really anxious about. What am I afraid of? Why am I afraid? Is my fear rational, right? Have I done things to desensitize myself to the level of anxiety that prevents me from performing at my best? Again, going back to the difference in, doing things in a pool and doing things in water. Nobody gets swimming pool anxiety. They get open water anxiety. And it stops a lot of people. A lot of it has to do with confidence, right? Also, one of the biggest things you can do with open water anxiety is learn how to control your breathing, right? Because most people get really, really, really out of breath. And the more you panic breathe, the shallower your breaths get, the more problematic it is. But the biggest thing is, what's the worst thing that can happen? What can I do to fix it? And then practice it. And again, going back to it, and then I'll jump to you, is that you can't practice what you don't expose yourself to. If you've got to put yourself in a situation in open water to where it's somewhat going to be problematic, right? And I know you and I did this a ton when we first started working together back in Nashville. I put people through the ringer in open water clinics. I do them at camps too. I mean, not at camps, but I mean, when we did our clinics before, I had, Teresa still was still very close to, like, she cried the first day we did it. But my job wasn't to make you cry. My job was to expose you to an environment to where you got to work through things in real time, to where you found a way to do it. And then you don't get anxiety anymore. Or when you do, you know how to troubleshoot it. And so, again, I'll toss this to you because I can't speak firmly on it, but I know you can.
Yeah. Well, yeah, back to when we first started, you did put us through the ringer, and we got to a point where I was actually, we did the mass start at Wisconsin, and I was actually looking forward to it and the contact, and it didn't scare me at all because we had practiced that kind of stuff a lot. But I got to be honest, man, it's fleeting though, because, you grew up in water. I didn't necessarily, and I felt very confident that particular year, but there's been times throughout my career where I've had in and out bouts with anxiety before race. Last year, I mean, I was talking to you. First of all, I swam my ass off for Wisconsin last year, and I felt very confident going in because I had swam much more volume than I ever probably have, and I felt very strong about it. And then we went out 2 days before the race, and I wasn't afraid of open water, but I hadn't been in my wetsuit in the whole 9 yards, and we all went out and started swimming, and I just went out too fast. And by the end, we swam about 600 or 700 yards or something like that. And I got out, and my confidence was shot because I was just breathing. I just didn't feel it. It's hard to explain if you haven't been through it, but the combination of the wetsuit and the open water, and all of a sudden you got to swim. I looked at it. I was used to a 1-loop course, and now it was 2 loops, and we didn't even hardly touch the first loop. And I come out of there, and I am gasping. It wasn't really gasping for breath as much as I felt that chest pain, right?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen you lack confidence at a race site, and that was the very first time in our 8, 9 years, 10 years together that I've ever seen you lack confidence the day or two before a race.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was certainly, if anything, mostly trained up for the swim, and it kind of showed in the race. But I felt very confident about it. And then all of a sudden, my blue chip got thrown away, and I was like, shit, now what do I have? And then, of course, it was raining, and you're cold. And these are the other things. I mean, for me, I'm a big proponent of warming up before you get in the water. Last year it was easy, just kind of stand there and sulk in the pouring cold rain. And then you kind of close in on your body. I mean, you have to start breathing. We talk about that a lot. It's just get some deep breaths and get your arms warmed up, and get it going. Get the blood flowing to your upper body. And then if you can't or don't do that, my other suggestion is always, especially like for Ironman or half. I mean, for most people that's a very long swim. So spend the first 200 or 300, 400 yards as a warm up. I mean, like, purposely swim as slow as you can, like annoyingly, obnoxiously slow. And what'll happen is you don't really swim as slow as you think you do, because you're jacked up about the race and you normally start too hot anyway. So you're going to be kind of going at a normal pace, and that lets you warm up. I mean, if you can't get a good warm up before the race, use the first few hundred yards just to warm up. You're not, you might lose 30 seconds or something like that. And then, but you can also, that's the difference between finishing out of breath and maybe finishing strong, which is exactly what happened to me last year. I just took my time on that first loop. And then I got to the second loop and I'm like, all right, I feel good. And you can tell when your body turns to feeling good in the water and you just feel strong. And then you just finish it out strong. But yeah, be careful. I think it's like, no different than waking up and you feel kind of cold and clammy in general. And you're just not, as sharp or as ready to go and do things as anything. So spend time warming up and get deep breathing in and like you're saying, man, be what are you afraid of? It's just, I don't even think it's fear a lot of times. I just think it's like we kind of close our body in and constrict our blood vessels and everything like that, and nothing's working in the body like it should. But, if you ever had a nice lather going before a swim, it doesn't seem as intimidating.
I love what you said there, and it's such a great advice, because as you were talking about that, I was thinking to myself, the first 2 minutes of the swim is very much like the first 2 minutes of your run. You always go out too fast. But in running, if you want to, you can stop and walk, or you can slow down your jog, and it's easy to breathe. In swimming, once you kind of get your heart rate up, it's hard to get it down. So imagine going out in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the marathon, half marathon, 5K, 10K, whatever it is, and you realize you went out too fast, and then you're stuck with that heart rate the whole time. You're screwed, right? You're going to panic. But going back to, you have to put yourselves in the environment and situations, right? So the biggest tips I can give is, because I do think wetsuits cause problems for people. I hate wearing them. I will say that, and we don't sponsor them, but the Blue 70 wetsuit I got before Wisconsin's the best wetsuit I've ever purchased and swam in. Way better than the Roka one that I was using. But the biggest issue people have is it makes you feel claustrophobic, right? So a great way to practice that is to put your wetsuit on at home, drive to the pool with it on, get in, immediately get in the water, and go into like a 400, 800 TT. Mm-hmm. Do that, right? So your heart rate's going to be elevated when you get there. Core temp's going to be elevated when you get there. You're going to have felt constricted, just so you will be waiting in the corral to come in for the rolling start, and then get in. Don't take it, because that's what people do. I'm gonna get used to my wetsuit, and they go and they like backstroke, taking 3 minutes per 100. They're like, yeah, it feels pretty good. What the fuck you mean it feels pretty good? Use it how it's supposed to be used, right? It's like, yeah, I got my disc wheel on, I get my front wheel on. I am ready to go. I felt great. Went out today on a pre-ride. I rode with my 5-year-old up to the pool house and back. What? No, you didn't. That has nothing to do with what you're going to do on race day. Do something that's going to be like race day. Wear your wetsuit, cap on, goggles, get in the water immediately and sprint. And then try to calm yourself down. Feel how it feels. And then also understand that the feeling isn't going to hurt you. The fear is what gets you. Like what you're feeling isn't harmful. It's the fear behind the feeling that's harmful, that scares you, right? It's what makes you feel afraid. So it makes you feel anxious. So doing that in a protected environment where you can simply stand if you get panicked, right, is great. And if you get panicked in the pool, stand up, stop, find a mantra, right? Find a mantra that sticks in your brain, that calms you down. Say it to yourself and start swimming again. And practice that. But again, swimming is the one where people act and think that they're doing all these things correctly to prepare themselves for, to swim well and to race well, and then wonder why it doesn't happen. It's because you're almost training for a different sport. And then you don't do things that can counteract or counterbalance the negativity, the anxiety that might come at you, right? So do something like that to get prepared. But yeah, your tips were outstanding. And again, it's something that can be overcome. You just have to put yourself in the situations that, and again, one open water swim, don't cut it. Yeah, I think swim hard for distance, and then when you get out of the pool, make sure you rinse off the wetsuit pretty good. That was our 3. I'm gonna hit a few questions. Patrick Gill, tips for open water swim and salt water. I don't know that there's any difference. The only difference is the fact that you're much more buoyant. I honestly find it like almost hard to stay in the water because it's so buoyant compared to fresh water because the salt, that you're so much faster in salt water. Outside of that, nothing different to prepare. Prepare just like you would any other circumstances. Prepare for that. Hit one or two more. We can close it out. Let's see here. What's the best way to go about a 2-loop Ironman swim as a faster swimmer? Is there a second loop technique that works better than another? I imagine just staying out in clean water is the way to go, but curious about your thoughts. Yeah, this is a great question. I've tried to like talk through this and time it, honestly, like in terms of 2-loop swims and how I would do it. Do you start kind of midway so you never really hit a bunch of traffic, you never catch up to the people that are in front of you? The best thing you can do is get in the water early, right? Swim with the people you can swim with and keep up with. And you're also more likely to find someone to draft off of. First loop, not a problem, right? It's the second loop that's challenging, problematic. The amount of time difference between a 1 loop and a second loop is usually a few minutes, and it's even more than that at Wisconsin. It was like 3 to 4 minutes. I don't go wide. I hug the buoy line or swim right inside of it, just right inside the buoy line. That's where no one is. People are usually way out wide. It's the cleanest water, and it gives you the biggest advantage to go left and right because there's going to be no one. Let's say you're keeping the buoys to your left. Well, I will swim right on top of the buoys or maybe a little bit inside the buoys going around them. But all you need to do is to move right to get around the buoy. If you're stuck out to the right, you probably have people to the right and to the left, and you're swimming a farther distance. If you're swimming close to the buoy or just inside of it, there's no one to the left of me. Right? If I'm keeping the buoys to the left and going around, counterclockwise, there's no one. So I've got no traffic, right? It's clear. It's clean. The further you get out, the more chop it is and the more distance you're going to cover because you have to take things wider and you have to fight your way back across the people you're trying to avoid already. That is the biggest tip I can give for a 2-loop Ironman swim.
It's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
It's just slower. You just have to, the best thing you do is swim straight and stick with the buoys.
I mean, the best plans of, that are laid out for stuff like that just seem to go to hell anyway.
They all do.
Yeah. But I do want to we can wrap it. I want to wrap it, but I love the mantra that you brought up. I mean, that's kind of changed the game for me in swimming. I found a good mantra and I just use it with each stroke and it takes my mind right there. And I don't even think about form. I just release and swim if I can stay in it. And that I really think that's a big one for a lot of people. Get your head in some space that's not fear, that's in safety and love, and just swim.
And practice it before race day. A mantra is not a mantra if you pick it up right when you get in the water, because you're still going to panic, right?
So help me, God.
I mean, you have to use the mantra to see that it works in order for it to be effective. You can't be like, all right, I haven't swum in open water this entire year. I've never worn this wetsuit more than like a 500-meter doggy paddle in the lake with my buddies, but I got this mantra and I got it, man. I got it. No, you got to use it in the environment in which it's supposed to be used, or it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So focus on that. We're going to come back strong on Thursday with some more. We're going to talk about finding the right masters group. We're going to talk about the biggest reasons why you're not getting faster, and then ways to take your pool speed to the open water. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's a one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for a way to support the podcast and just support us in general, click on the gear tab. Purchase some gear. That's the best way to support us. And you can also go to iTunes or your favorite podcast platform and give us a good review. But that's it. If you need anything or have any questions for Mike, he's at CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right. And look, quickly, we put up, we talked about the sprint and Olympic plans. They are up there. Go to c26triathlon.com, click on either coaching or beginner, and we have what we call a team plan, and we're giving it away for free. So if you know anybody that might be wanting to get in or thinking about triathlon, spread the word and send it out. It's a free plan, or it's a free program actually, with video instructions, beginner's guide, all kinds of stuff. And we're going to set everybody up with a mentor to help them with questions and things like that too. So it's a great program. Go ahead and share it with your friends or yourself if you're just getting into it. And that's it. We'll see you Thursday.
See you, dude.
All right, man.